Hello everyone, my name is Marcos and I'm the solo developer of Dawn of the West, a multiplayer first-person shooter based on the Wild West. In this first devlog, I'm gonna tell you a bit about the game, how it all started, and how I scratched out the whole first year of development to start it all over again. But before we get into that, let me tell you how the story begins. The idea behind this game was to create something I could enjoy with my closest friends, so it had to be easy to pick up and play, but I also wanted more in-depth mechanics that would keep players engaged and would elevate the competitive aspect of the game. I've been a Counter-Strike player my whole life, but my closest friends were never much interested in it. They never cared about competitive play, and they were always more into casual single-player games. The only time they all picked up on a more competitive game was when we discovered Valve's Day of Defeat, a multiplayer first-person shooter set in the World War II, where teams would fight for control of a map while trying to capture these points marked by flags. It's your basic capture the flag game, but for me it's always felt so different from the others in the genre. Day of Defeat quickly became our obsession. We would get together at someone's house, set up a LAN party and play for hours on end. What I realized then was that the game was not only fun because of the mechanics or its competitiveness, but also because of the social aspect of it and how big of an impact it would make on the main gameplay objective. We would laugh, joke around and have a great time together while sweating the game. And yes, although we joked a lot, everybody was always trying to win, and that made the game even more fun. So my idea was to recreate that experience, making a game appealing for both casual and competitive players, while keeping it fresh with a new setting and with my own twist, which we'll get into in future devlogs. I started working on the game back in 2023, and while by then I already had a lot of knowledge about game development and Unreal Engine, I had never worked on a multiplayer game before and never had coded it in C++. All my previous games in Unreal were made using blueprints, and I was very comfortable with it. But I knew that if I wanted to make a competitive multiplayer game, I would have to learn C++ to squeeze every bit of performance I could out of this game. Fortunately, my asset hoarding habit came true and I found this plugin in my library named FPS Core, made by a really nice developer called Makes Marketplace Assets. This is a complete FPS framework that has everything you need to get started with an FPS game, and it's all coded in C++. That's all I needed, right? Nope. You see, Alice plugin is great, but it's not network replicated, and I needed to learn how to do that myself, so I started learning C++. Thankfully, Alice code is very well commented and easy to read, so I was able to learn a lot from it. I also started learning about networking in Unreal Engine, and within a month I had a replicated version of FPS Core up and running, which was also featured in the official website/documentation for the plugin at the time. So then, I had a full network replicated FPS framework with shooting and reloading mechanics, a recoil system, and everything I could possibly need for my game. Next step was to get my first weapon model into it. Now, I can model simple things in Blender, but if I tried to model a single action army revolver, it would look something like this. Thankfully, I found this amazing model on the marketplace, complete with very detailed and realistic animations, particle effects and sounds. All I had to do was to set it up in the game and retarget the animations to my character, which for some reason I could never get it perfect. So I always need to come back and tweak the animations, especially around the finger bones. Oh yes, my character. You might think that characters I can model, but if I tried they would look something like this. So the obvious solution was to spend some more bucks and buy a character model on the marketplace. By now you can see that I'm very lucky when it comes to searching for assets on the marketplace, and this time was no different. I found this amazing asset pack called Western Characters Pack Wild West Adventure Survival survival shooter action man-women by the awesome team at DOTW Studio. A few months after I purchased the pack, they released the MetaHuman clothes version, and that's all I needed since their clothes look great, but I really wanted to be able to customize the physical appearance of my characters, and MetaHumans are perfect for that. Fast forwarding a couple of months, I had this fully done map called Downtown Valley, a network replicated shooting system, a few animated weapons and character models, and all that was left was to set up the lobby system, gaming hosting and all that stuff. To do so, I followed this very detailed tutorial series in Ryan Laley's channel, which I highly recommend if you're looking to learn anything Unreal related. It was by then that my worst enemy struck. I got burnt out. You see, by then I had spent almost 1 year working on the game, and I could feel I was so close to having it in a state where I could playtest with my friends, but at the same time I was nowhere happy with how it was turning out. The movement felt clunky, the shooting was not satisfying, the animations were not good enough, the map looked very generic, and on top of that the performance was terrible. And that was it. I had to take a break from the game. I was done. I didn't touch it for almost a year. I was very close to giving up on my dream of creating the game I always wanted to play. But then comes Epic Games clutching with the release of Unreal Engine 5.4, and with it, the game animation sample, or GASP for friends, a fully procedural motion matching system that results in the most realistic and fluid character movement I've ever seen in a game. I immediately knew I could build my game on top of this new system. Wait, rebuild? Yes, I had to start it all over. And don't get me wrong, I was happy to do so. I knew that if I started from scratch, I could take my time to recreate all the systems I had in a more efficient way while not leaving behind any bugs, performance issues and clunky mechanics. So I started working on the game again, and this time I promised myself I wouldn't move on to the next feature until I was happy with the result of the previous one. And that's where we are now, or at least where you are, since I'm starting this devlog series a bit late into development. But that's good news for you, since I already have a lot of content to show. The next devlogs will come out really quickly, at least until you're caught up with me. So if you liked this first devlog, please consider clicking on the like button and subscribing to the channel. And stay tuned for the next devlog where I'll show you how I completely converted GASP into C++ and possibly much more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.